Our next speaker is going to take us back a little bit now in terms of the content of Andy's presentation, and he's really going to be focusing on this view of exclusivity in order to develop and get closer to inclusivity. How do you get that balance right? And Kerl Haslam is the CEO of Sportsable, and he's going to share their experiences around how you do just that. Kerl, over to you.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, good. Right. So first and foremost, I'd just like to introduce myself, Kerl Haslam, CEO of Sportsable, chief bottle washer, volunteer, and everything else that needs to be done when you're running a charity like Sportsable. To tell you a little bit more about Sportsable. Sportsable is a charity. It was formed in 1975, formerly known as WAMSTAD, Windsor Ascot Maidenhead District Sports Association for the Disabled. We changed our name in 2012 because we realised there was much more to what we do than just deliver disability sport. And I'll talk about that in a bit more detail. So we've got lots of stats, and I'm going to run through these, and just so you all be clear, you can get a copy of this presentation on our website, sportsable.co.uk, so don't worry about writing down all these stats. And most of the things here you should already know. So what I'm going to try and share with you is hopefully the 3% that you don't know. So 17% of people with a disability were born with a disability. When I first heard that stat, I was convinced it was wrong, because actually what it means is 83% of people become disabled as a result of trauma, whether that be a life-changing injury or a life-changing illness. That's quite an interesting fact. More importantly, you're more likely to have a life-changing injury between the ages of 17 and 35 than any other time in your life, and you're more likely to have a life-changing illness between the ages of 30 and 55. So that's quite a big stat. 20% of the population have at least one impairment. That's 1 in 5. 1 in 5 of the national population have some form of a disability or impairment. Government has made a commitment to support disability, yet disabled people are twice as likely to be inactive as the rest of the population. And that's quite, again, an important stat. And I'd like to say at this point, thank you to Sports England for giving us a framework, which I certainly believe is leading us in the right direction, to focus on the right things, the things that are important, as opposed to the things that we were measuring before when you're talking about people's trauma. I'd also like to say thank you to the Activity Alliance, a great organisation that's really been championing the needs of disability and disability issues, and been doing a great job, and just recently launched their strategy for what we're going to do to change things. Brilliant again. But people with disability are 3 times more likely to suffer depression. Over 50% of the retirement age have a mobility issue. So that means just a matter of time for the people sitting in this room that you're equally going to be in a situation where you have to start thinking about what you can and you can't do. Again, I found it quite interesting this morning, and we was talking about making people more active, certainly making more women active. I'm sure if I told my wife a number of years ago when she was bringing up our 3 children she needed to be more active, I wouldn't be standing here today speaking to you about disability and mobility. The important thing here is, how do we close the gap? And there's been lots of stats, lots of discussion, lots of great projects, lots of fantastic charities out there doing fantastic jobs. We've heard about volunteers earlier on and the importance of volunteers into charities, and we as Sportsable certainly could not function without the 150 plus volunteers that we have helping us deliver sport day in, day out. Quite an important element, but there's more to it than just that, just pure transport. That's a big issue. This morning as I was coming down here, I suddenly looked around and I realised if I was in a wheelchair, I wouldn't have a hope in hell's chance of getting here today. That's quite a sad issue to be facing. Can you imagine if I was looking to do sport and I had to get into London at a specific time, and the only option for me would be to leave about 5 o'clock in the morning and come down by car and spend a small fortune. So again, how do we address the gap? There are so many issues to face over and above just looking at statistics. We heard earlier on, John mentioned about what measures gets done. Certainly believe in that, but are we measuring the right things? Because if we're not, we're going to get the wrong outcomes. So I said I'm going to talk to you about the 3%, the 3% that I think we do really well as Sportsable. We focus on physical and sensory disabilities. That's our bread and butter. That's what we do really well. Having said that, we manage a number of outreach programs. We go out into community, we work with other organisations that work with other types of disability, and we share with them our knowledge and experience in terms of delivering quality sport. And that's important to us. Why? Because it educates people. So how are we going to close the gap? What's going to change? In my experience, most fundamentally, people need to understand what they're talking about. We can have a conversation, I can be saying one thing, you can be saying something else, but fundamentally, more often than not, we're agreeing. Sometimes we have to disagree, sometimes we have to agree, sometimes we have to agree to disagree. 3 things that I learned earlier on in life makes my life a lot easier. So, the importance of exclusivity. Again, you may be sitting there saying to yourself, why am I talking about the importance of exclusivity when everybody talks about inclusivity? Now, for me, the important thing is to ask questions. Why? Why is inclusivity so important? What does it actually mean? When you say inclusivity and I say inclusivity, what is it that we actually mean? I love this slide because it sort of talks about what inclusivity is versus what exclusivity is. Sportsable is a club that's there for disabled people, their friends and their family. And it's their friends and family that's important. If you speak to our members, they will tell you the importance of our club, their club, and what it's done to them and their friends and their family and their partners. There's so many other challenges that we have to think about when you go through that life-changing injury or life-changing illness, what it actually means, what it means to your income, what it means to your personal esteem, what it means to your partners, what it means to your children. These are things that we like to focus on, and our ethos is one of fun, friendship and opportunity. I talked about Sportsable, and we're a disability sports club. We are a grassroots sports disability club. But having said that, we've had representation at every Paralympics since 1976. We've already got some of our members on the road to Tokyo. We're very proud of that fact, but they will tell you themselves, if it wasn't for the fact that we gave them the opportunity to experience sport, they wouldn't be where they are today. It costs us over £300,000 a year to stand still. We get no formal government funding or grants whatsoever. That's a big, big number for us to raise year in and year out. But we do it, and we're glad to do it. It would be nice if we got some of that funding that Lisa was mentioning earlier on, so I'll be looking to tap her up for a few bob. But the important thing about that is our members, okay? And we talk about the exclusivity, but ultimately what we want to do is get our members back on the road, right? Back on the road into society, whatever that may mean. If you're suffering from a life-changing injury or a life-changing illness, and you've just heard those words, you've got cancer, that's a bit of a scary thing. Or you've been involved in some form of an accident, you're going to lose your legs. That's a scary thing. How many people at that time are thinking, well, you know what, I know I'm going to lose my legs, but I need to go out and be more active? It doesn't happen. So what we have to look at is not just the fact that we want to get people out and be active. We need to understand what are the barriers to them going out and being active. There's a whole raft of things. I've talked about the financial impacts of one. We've heard a lot about mental well-being. Can you imagine the psychological impact of going through something like that? I mentioned outreach programs, okay? We ran a very successful outreach program with Wexham Park Hospital, new amputees. That was an eye-opener for me, new amputees. So when you use the term new amputees, how long do you think these people have been going through that particular traumatic issue? I thought, well, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. Some of the people that we saw had been on the physio books for 10 years plus. That's a long time. Why? Because they won't be released until their carers are confident that they'll actually go out and be active. So what did we do? We rocked up to Wexham Park Hospital with 2 of my friends, from the wheelchair basketball section, a number of our chairs, and we said, right guys, today you're going to do wheelchair basketball. They looked at me as if I had two heads, which was interesting, and their immediate reaction was, I can't do it. But we didn't give them the option because to the right and to the left of me were two amputees. One of our particular members, Ron, sat there and he wasn't interested in it. Ron's 70 years of age at the time, he was about 27 stone. They were trying to get him to lose half a stone in weight so that he could actually be fitted with his prosthetic leg and find things more comfortable. He was adamant, I've told you before, it is impossible. I have no chance of losing half a stone in weight. Ben and Adam said, that's interesting. Between the two of us, we've lost 15 stone. That was an eye-opener for Ron. He's joined Sportsable. He now does archery twice a week. He does air weapons twice a week. He does wheelchair basketball twice a week. And he swims on a Sunday. And in between that, he raises money for Sportsable. Not a bad situation to be in. And I can give you a number of stories like that, which has happened as a result of our members engaging in disability sport. So we do 19 sports, 365 days of the year, 7 days a week, okay? A lot of sport. Why is that important? We give people the opportunity to do lots of different sports because in doing that, they have the opportunity to try things out. We've had people come in here and do one sport and ultimately end up finding that they do something else. We had one of our guys come in to do wheelchair basketball. He was quite good at wheelchair basketball, but then actually discovered that he had a passion and a natural knack for archery. He's on the road to Tokyo now. We work with other organisations to deliver sport. We have a very successful water sports group that's delivering kayaking on a regular basis, people getting out, being active. We have ambitions to actually do disability athletics. That's an interesting thing for us to take over the running track that's just probably 300, 400 yards on our doorstep. It's a cinder track, which arguably isn't able-body friendly, let alone disabled friendly. But these things cost money. So, why is it important to focus on exclusivity? I started by saying at the beginning that we focus on fun, friendship and opportunity, and that's important. The social side of what we deliver is amazing. I am truly honoured to actually work in Sportsable and see the people that I see, not just the disabled people, but the volunteers, their friends, their family that come into our club. This is a home from them. It is a safe environment. The things that these people have to worry about just in terms of getting from A to B are ridiculous in the 21st century. If you have to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to have a car park, if you get from the car park to the venue that you want to go to, and then if you get into that venue, will you be able to use the loo? These aren't things that we think of on a day-by-day basis. At Sportsable, disabled people don't need to worry about those things. At Sportsable, their friends, their family, their partners don't have to worry if they're going to be safe, because they are. And we provide a level of respite care for those people, because suddenly they don't have to worry about what their partner's going to do or whether they're going to be safe, because we do that, and their friends around them do that. They have the opportunity to share their fears, their worries, their anxieties, but more importantly, they have the opportunity to have fun. So it's all very well me saying this is all the great things that we do in Sportsable. My mission, and it's an interesting thing again, I was asked how many people were here last year. Well, I was one of them. I was sitting in the seats where you are. And I was a man on a mission. My mission was to let everybody know about Sportsable and what we do. I'm still on a mission right now. Ultimately, I'd love to see a Sportsable in every county, delivering what we do week in, week out, because it's a very important thing that we do. Just recently, we've done an impact report, something that was commissioned independently. So we saw these stats and we thought, well, this is interesting. Let's survey our base. Let's find out what our base really think. Because it's very easy for me to sit here and say we're wonderful, but what do our actual members think? And that's quite interesting in terms of bucking the trend of all the stats that you would have seen earlier. 96% of cases, Sportsable enhances physical, mental and social well-being. That's a fact. That's not me saying that, that's our members saying it. Again, 30% of people with a disability suffer mental issues. Our members report that being a member of Sportsable raises their spirits, it improves their well-being. This is important information for us. But there are other stats in there, I'm not going to go through them all. But the worrying thing for me is that 52% of our members rely on a friend or a family member to get them to our club. 52%. So where is their independence in that? We need to look at transport. We need to find different ways to get more disabled people active. We need to make it easy for them. I talked earlier about the 300,000 pounds a year that we pay week in and week out to deliver sport. Our members pay £6.25 per month to do all the sport that they can. £6.25. That's not bad going. But is that something that's affordable for everybody? Pretty much so. But if you look at what the standard cost of membership in a sports gym now is, which is a couple of £100, how do you justify that if you're on a low income, if you've just been newly disabled, if you've just lost 50% of your household income? You don't. Flying through these stats, just conscious of time. Yep. As I said, these are all on here, but this is the thing that I want you to think about. It's all very well sitting here thinking that's wonderful. I mentioned 1 in 5 people, okay, 20% of the population have some form of disability. It's a big stat. 83% of disabled people have acquired a disability, either through a life-changing injury or a life-changing illness. So imagine that when you're busily driving down the road on a clear summer's day, and that happens. That was my niece's car, driving down the road, minding her own business with her boyfriend, and she ended up in that car crash. Broke her back in 3 places. And thankfully, she's on the road to rehabilitation. But there isn't a Sportsable where she lives. There isn't a club that she can go to easily. Happened to her when she was 17, so she wasn't even entitled to any benefits whatsoever. So she's relying on the bank of mum and dad, as most kids do, to get through day-to-day requirements. But she can't afford to join a gym, £200 plus. So reality check. This could be you. But the important thing here is, what are we going to do to make things different? So how do you eat an elephant? Bit by bit. So what I would be saying to yourselves is, look at what you're doing within your own organisations. Look and see what you can learn from other organisations like ours. We're more than willing to share all of our knowledge and all of our expertise, because we have one passion in life, and that's to see more disabled people doing more disabled sport and doing it alongside their friends and family where appropriate. But more importantly, we want to have fun, enjoy the friendships, and have lots of opportunities. Thank you.